All right, welcome back, everybody. It's almost time to say goodbye. In fact, we've got 15 minutes left of this broadcast, this TNA this morning. So let me take to Twitter. Let me tell you what's happening out there. And Peter, perhaps maybe we can speak to the minister about some of these comments as well. This is from Modiba, writing to us and saying, the struggle that the women marches of 1956 embarked on is in many ways still relevant today. That's one of the comments that has come through. This is from Zakita saying, culture has become a stump in the wheel of the development of women in Africa. And I think she's just repeating perhaps some of the sentiments that the minister was talking about. Thabo Lietsiso saying, women should claim leadership in business and corporates rather than be allowed to be a stat empowering corporates and businesses as well. This is another one from Modiba, the same author as the previous one here. Women's heroic exploits are often relegated to the footnotes of history. This is some important issues that are being raised here during this TNA as well. Here we go. Without disrespecting Women's Month, women in general, but there are abusive women of influence as well. That's from Thabo. Thabo, we know this as well, but I think at the moment what we're doing is talking about some of the issues regarding women as well. Lisa writing and saying, excellent focus on educating men and boys to prevent violence against women. And thank you very much for bringing that up. So lots and lots of suggestions coming through. Here's one question. Twitter handle, These Walking Boots. Is Minister Shabangu suggesting that GBV will be dealt with by civil society and the DOJ? That's one of the questions that has come through as well. All right, let's go back to you at the TNA.
All right, Leanne, thank you very much indeed. I guess it's a lot of people just making comments on some of the things that we've been talking about. But I think that there is an aspect that she did raise, is that maybe part of the challenge is how women treat each other as well, is something that we need to address.
Well, I agree. I agree fully that sometimes ourselves as women, we are our own enemies. And we've got to change. It's attitudes in society. They might differ or vary, but the reality is that all of us have to change. If we've got to advance the interest of women in this country, we must change, because it's very, very important to say we need to understand our space. And I think as women, we must support each other. Very key, not pull others down, because those are some of the problems. And I think it just relates broadly for us. Sometimes we as women, instead of supporting another woman, will support a man. We've got to look at that, because you're competing. It's also part of cultures which have been entrenched, where we think that as different women, a man is still better than a woman. So we've got to change those attitudes and judge ourselves on the basis of the best. If we have a best woman, let's recognize that woman and make sure that we put that woman in the right place. So support groups and all that. And you know what is interesting for us as women? It's very funny. There's no other person who forms groupings at various levels in the townships. It's women. Bomanyano, societies are created by men, by women, not men, coming together and finding a common cause. So we always together, but there's always tends to be this tension which we don't understand. But I want to say there's a lot of support amongst women, and they're the ones who recognize their plight more than men. And it's us. If you can ask at various levels who is organized or mobilized better, it's women in the little corners. So we have the potential. It's just that how do we enhance it and grow it? So for me, that's very, very important. And the point raising about GBD, gender-based violence, we're not saying it's civil society. It's all of us, including government. It's not one section of the community which can deal with gender violence, because it manifests itself all over. It manifests in government itself. Civil servants, it manifests in politicians. So it needs all of us. Professionals, it's there. So we've got to work together. The civil society and government, as we know, must continue, because I can't say that we need each other. There are partnerships. We must continue working together. And the gaps which are there needs everybody in society in making sure that we create and make a difference in addressing the issue of gender violence.
All right. Well, talking about that subject, the chairperson of the Gender Commission is with us. And just to make a comment on that, if you could just identify yourself for our audience.
I'm Vano Zalweshozi, the chair of the Commission for Gender Equality. There are two issues. Let me just start with the issue of working with men, because as a Commission for Gender Equality, we work with both men and women. And we were able to actually unearth some of these issues. One issue that I'm going to speak about is, in South Africa, was what we call parole boards. And that the institutions, very important institutions that work directly with offenders, more especially male offenders. And I happened, before I became the chair, I was the chair of the parole board. One of the critical issues is that when we work with men, there are men who will say, I'm wrong, we've done this thing. But there are those who are very hard criminals who will never say they've actually done anything wrong. And secondly, when we work with men in the communities, when we work as men's forums, there are those men who feel that women's rights are there to oppress them. So I think the way in which we have introduced the women's rights, we need to actually change it so that men will feel as though being part and parcel of the gender equality sector. So that's what we're trying to do as men's forums, to try and actually bring men on board, because they don't understand the period of rights. They feel that we is there to actually oppress them. That's one. The other critical issue, Minister, and is the issue around different types of abuses. And there is more focus on physical, which we should continue with, but there's less focus on physical, economical, and emotional abuse. And we are unable to prosecute those as well, which I think is something that we really need to actually deal with. So those are some of the issues. But what is also important is that we must find ways to actually make sure that men and women work together. Those men's forums, and I know that SAPS, they have Men for Change, they have also Women's Network, where they come together at some point to discuss some of these issues. But really, the issue of gender equality is important. But I also want to say, Peter, that's the most important thing is why there's this impunity. When police have actually investigating cases, people don't come forward to go and testify in courts. And therefore, if there is nobody who has actually testified in court, therefore the case is going to be thrown out of court. And as men, with Brothers for Life, Men's Forum and so on, if we know that there's somebody who actually puts another person, who are prepared to actually go there and testify, so that those people can actually be brought to book. But I think we must encourage our South Africans to go and actually testify in court, so that those people can actually be brought before the book. Thank you.
All right. Okay. There's a gentleman right at the back. If we could get a comment from you, and then we're going to have to start wrapping it up. Women's issues, I mean, they cut across all sort of fibers of society, and I guess this is a conversation that we're going to need to continue having. Yes, sir.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Puneet, and I'm from India. So before I get into the psychology of a man, I would like to clarify the definition of psychology. Logi stands for study of, and psyche is a Greek word for spirit. Spirit doesn't have a gender. So let's understand what each one of us is trying to do. Each one of us is trying to survive. And in that conquest, when we receive painful experiences, we get incorrect information stored in our minds. And that mind, in an attempt to survive, works on that reactive basis instead of analytical basis. So if you look at somebody getting abused or abusing somebody, he's actually operating on a previous painful experience. As my brother Fraser mentioned, we have to prevent these painful experiences in everybody's life, men, women, and children, so that they don't go forward and react on the same basis. So there is no psychology of man. There's only, we are all spiritual beings trying to survive. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that. Look, Minister, we're definitely going to have you back, because, we didn't even touch half of the questions. And we're kind of running out of time. So perhaps if you could just use this last minute or so just to give us your final thoughts, big vision. How do we all get involved in the things that you're trying to do? You've literally got 30 seconds.
Well, listening to the questions, comments, we need various platforms at a very high level. I mean, I'm just thinking that we need to work, for instance, towards the 16 days, where the 16 days cannot be an event, but it can form a program which takes us forward. You know, we talk about 365 days, but then it's only 16 days, it becomes an event. Maybe 16 days must be a period where we reflect on the successes, how far we have gone, more than looking at programs, where all of us can come and say, this was my contribution, and what were the weaknesses, why it couldn't happen. And I think if we take it in that way, where we use 16 days as a period of reflection on the performance or what we do for the rest of the year might help us. So I would say for me that becomes very important when I listen to say, let everything not be an event. Let us internalize it.
And
it
live it
forms
every
part
day.
of our day-to-day lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister in the Presidency responsible for women, the Honourable Minister Susan Shabangu. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us this day. All right. Look, we're going to have to try and do this again. It's just such a big, enormous subject and one that needs to be on the agenda all the time, I would suggest. So watch this space. I'm sure we'll do it again soon, and we'll get to your messages as well. In the meantime, from us, have a great day, everybody. Have a happy weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Peter.